Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto goes back in time with Kakashi to his Genin days, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Kakashi looked at the scroll in his hands with great interest. The man who had hired them for the exceedingly dangerous but rather tedious A-rank mission hadn't had enough money to cover the fee, but had promised them some valuable scrolls in to make up the difference. Most of that had gone to Godime to do with what she would, but this, well, this was a little too interesting to pass up. What is it? Naruto demanded impatiently. You've been staring at that thing for the past hour. I have not, Kakashi lied. Kakashi-sensei's right. Sakura sided with her teacher. Kakashi shot her a grateful look, but she wasn't finished. He's been staring at it for the past hour and 3 minutes, she finished with a smirk. Is it a powerful jutsu? Sasuke asked. Because if it's not, I've got better ways of wasting my time. At least it's not porn this time, Sakura tried to be positive. Sasuke snorted. I wouldn't be too sure. Kakashi ignored his 3 students, trying to decide whether or not he should share this with them. It was highly irresponsible, of course, and if anyone had thought to do so, it would be highly illegal as well. The man who had hired them clearly had no idea what he was parting with. This scroll contains a time travel jutsu, Kakashi said gravely, deciding that since Naruto had finally made good on his age-old promise to kick Sasuke's and bring him back home, stopping Madara and saving the world in the process, none of them were really the world-conquering types, and as Naruto didn't believe in revenge, Sasuke had already gotten his, and Sakura really hadn't had anything too horrible by ninja standards happen to her, it was reasonably safe to share. A time travel jutsu? Sakura repeated skeptically. I've never heard of anything like that. Even if it were possible, the energy required to use it would just be. She trailed off, unable to think of a way to describe it. Kakashi shrugged. That's the other reason I'm telling you. If the 4 of us do it at the same time, it should be powerful enough. Assuming, of course, Naruto uses the Kyuubi. When would we go back to? Naruto asked. Whenever, Kakashi replied. We each have to pick a point in our lives that we'd like to relive and start over from there. I should warn you not to go back too far, because then you're stuck reliving your entire childhood as an adult and that would get very old, very fast. There's no way to get back to now, though, so think carefully before you decide. Do you want to use this? Hell yeah, Naruto shouted, pumping his fists in the air excitedly. Just think of all the people I could help. I could save Haku, and Old Man Hokage, and Asuma. And I could help Gaara, and Neji, and, well, pretty much all my other friends with their various issues that much sooner. And I could kill Orochimaru. Well, it's nice to know you have a plan, Kakashi said, feeling that Naruto was probably getting a little ahead of himself. And who was Haku again? I guess it would be nice to see if I could make a difference by not being useless at the beginning when everything started going to hell, Sakura mused. Sasuke. Kakashi questioned the last member of his initial team. Sasuke smirked. I'm sure I could think of some way to occupy myself. Choosing not to press for answers lest he hear something that would make him reconsider, Kakashi smiled brightly. Not that anyone could tell beneath the mask, of course, but it was really the thought that counted, and said cheerfully, let's do it, then. Kakashi knew exactly where he'd wanted to be. The minute he saw the words, time travel, he knew. And he'd had so many flashbacks back to this day over the years, that he was certain he could get it right. If not, well, he was a good 20 years older and more experienced since then, and hadn't he and Rin always agreed that had Minato-sensei been there, things wouldn't have ended so tragically. Sure, he'd miss his trademark Sharingan eye, and if he lost his left eye again then there would be some real hell to pay, regardless of how everything else worked out, but Obito's life would be worth the inconvenience. And it's not like there wouldn't be plenty of unused Sharingan eyes a few years down the road if he was really desperate anyway. Are you even listening to me? Obito demanded angrily. Not even slightly, Kakashi confessed, a smile crossing his face despite himself as he climbed to his feet. Obito had apparently knocked him to the ground. Not surprising, if this was the infamous rescue Rin conversation. I definitely can't stand you. Obito yelled, furious that his heartfelt pleas to go and rescue Rin didn't even seem to merit the commander's attention. That hurts, really, Kakashi said, half serious. You know what else hurts? Obito asked rhetorically. The thought of us abandoning Rin to her fate. Of course we're not going to abandon Rin. Kakashi said, shocked. You can't expect these guards to work out the logical reasons to keep her alive and do so. Obito told him. They could kill her at any time. We don't have time to finish the mission and come back and hope she's there. I absolutely agree, Kakashi said solemnly. Poor Obito was so surprised he practically fell over. You do? He asked finally, wondering what the trick is. Kakashi nodded eagerly. Oh, definitely. What happened to, in the ninja world, those who do not obey the rules and regulations are trash? Obito asked suspiciously. That's true, Kakashi allowed. But on the other hand, those who do not care about their companions are worse than trash. His grin grew as he quoted the words Obito had not yet spoken but had changed his life back to him. If Obito was surprised before, okay, who are you and what have you done with Kakashi? I don't know what you're talking about, Kakashi said airily. You just said that we should leave Rin. Just 2 minutes ago, Obito pointed out. That's why I punched you. That I did, Kakashi agreed. I changed my mind. Clearly, Obito muttered. Why? Not that I'm not in support of this change of opinion, because I definitely am, but I don't get it. It occurred to me that my father was, in fact, a true hero after all, Kakashi explained. And it wouldn't do very well to shame his memory by leaving Rin to die, now would it? Obito stared at him. You just decided that? In the time it took you to get up after I punched you? Kakashi nodded. Yes. Maybe you too have therapy jutsu. In fact, I'm nearly positive that you do. Therapy jutsu, Obito repeated, still rather unbalanced from this recent turn of events. Therapy jutsu, Kakashi confirmed. It's where you're fighting someone, they suddenly flash back to their tragic childhood, realize that they were being an idiot and change the course of their life. That sounds kind of unlikely, Obito confessed. Kakashi shrugged. I've seen it happen. Practically every time Naruto got within 2 feet of a fight, really. Well, okay, then. This is unexpected. Good, but unexpected. Let's go after Rin, then. Obito declared. You know, I had an entire speech planned, too, Obito complained as they approached their destination. It was a good speech, too. But it's like you took the words right out of my mouth. You're imagining things, Kakashi lied, wondering vaguely if he should be concerned how well he remembered what was going on. He wasn't that obsessive, was he? Oh, who was he trying to kid? He relived this day at the memorial every time he went, which was every day. It would actually be kind of weird if he didn't remember it this well. Found them, Obito breathed as they spotted the cave the Rin was being kept in. What's the plan? Kakashi thought for a moment, then figured that since it had worked last time, they might as well try it again. The less variables the better chance he had of controlling the outcome. You go ahead a little. Act like you're trying to be stealthy but failing. There are 2 of them, so since they think we're just a bunch of kids one of them will come out while the other stays with Rin. I can kill whoever comes out from behind. Alright, Commander, Obito agreed. It was silly, of course, and he had had his authority acknowledged many, many times over the years, but hearing it from Obito was nice. He hoped he'd earn that respect in the next few minutes because he really wasn't sure he could handle losing him all over again. They weren't even that close back when Obito was alive, something he was determined to rectify the minute this hostage crisis was over, but he'd made such an big impact on his life posthumously. Not to mention that while he still felt guilty that his hesitance to go after Rin the first time might have played a role in Obito's death, that was nothing compared to how hard it would hit him if he knew it was coming but failed to prevent it. Alright, let's go, Obito said, moving close. To where? Teizuki asked, materializing right behind Obito as Kakashi knew he would. Quickly, the newly minted Junin body flickered over to them and held a kunai to Teizuki's throat. To rescue our teammate, he answered as he slit the enemy ninja's throat, feeling rather pleased that he'd managed to avenge his eye all these years later. Better watch that talk of vengeance, though. He didn't want to be Sasuke, after all. Wow, Obito said, his eyes wide. He didn't even have a chance to react. That was the idea, Kakashi said dryly. Now when we go in there, I need you to free Rin and get out. Watch out for falling rocks and leave Kako to me. Who? Obito asked, confused. The enemy ninja, Kakashi explained. Why do you know his name? Obito still didn't get it. Because I'm amazing, obviously, Kakashi said coolly. Or rather, because he'd obsessively pieced together what he could about that day in the weeks to follow. That didn't make him sound nearly as cool, though. God, he'd really been spending too much time with Guy, hadn't he? Speaking of, since he wasn't planning on receiving his signature Sharingan this time around, he might actually have to start training with him. Not as compulsively, obviously, but he needed an edge somehow, right? Not the word I would use, but, let's go, Obito said, running towards the mouth of the cave and immediately engaging Kako. Kakashi groaned. What did I tell him? He's as bad as Naruto, I swear. As Obito was apparently busy, Kakashi hurried to Rin's side and quickly dispelled the illusion and untied her. Rin blinked blurrily. Kakashi. What? Oh. Her eyes went wide as they found her other teammate. Obito. His eyes. A quick glance confirmed for him that Obito had just awakened his Sharingan. Good. He'd completely forgotten about that in his effort to shut Teizuki down quickly and not lose his precious eye. Still, he'd better lend a hand. Are you okay to walk? Kakashi asked. Yes, Rin nodded, getting shakily to her feet. Wait near the exit for us, Kakashi instructed. It shouldn't take long. Without waiting to see if she'd listen, he knew she would, of course, he turned towards the battle and threw a shuriken at Kako. He dodged it easily, but that gave Obito an opportunity to knock him down. We did it. Obito beamed when he didn't get up after several moments. Knowing that Kako was either faking or would be regaining consciousness shortly, Kakashi shook his head grimly. Not yet. Chidori. He cried as he killed Obito's would-be murderer. Minato-sensei said not to use that, Obito pointed out. I've completed it, Kakashi replied. In one day. Obito couldn't believe it. Is that any harder to believe than me changing my entire belief system in the course of one punch? Kakashi asked rhetorically as he and the very much alive Uchiha made their way out of the very much not collapsing cave. Hey, don't diss the therapy jutsu. Obito laughed. Wouldn't dream of it, Kakashi promised. Guys, Rin piped up. Much as I hate to interrupt now that you two are actually getting along, but reinforcements showed up. Doden Ritsudo Tenshou, several of the many reinforcements said, putting his hands to the ground. Recognizing that jutsu is the one that had led to Obito's death, Kakashi quickly grabbed both of his teammates and hightailed it out of the path of the collapsing cave. Once he was clear, he grabbed Minato's special kunai and threw it. With any luck, his sensei would soon appear and, there he was. He had a really fast response time, didn't he? But then, since he wasn't supposed to know what the kunai did and it was shaped weird, he probably assumed Kakashi wouldn't use it if he wasn't out of options. Wow, sensei is awesome, Rin said, watching Minato take down opponent after opponent and showed them exactly why he was known as Konoha's Yellow Flash. You think that's cool? Obito asked. You should try watching it with the Sharingan. Now that's cool. I know, Kakashi agreed, remembering several times when he'd done just that. What? Obito asked. I said, I'm still waiting for that. You made Junin present. I'm very proud of all of you, Minato told them as they made camp for the night. Rin, even though you were captured and tortured under Genjutsu, you did not reveal anything to the enemy. Obito, you found your courage, awoke your Sharingan, and proved yourself as a truly capable shinobi of Konoha. And Kakashi, I honestly never thought I'd say this, but you have learned the true meaning of teamwork. What about our mission? Rin asked. We kind of forgot about that. Minato smiled warmly at them. Unexpected delays happen all the time on missions. I took down the shinobi I needed to, so I can join you on your part tomorrow. The Kanabi Bridge is SO going down, Obito declared boldly. I bet I'll destroy it first, Kakashi challenged impulsively. Oh, you are so on, Obito said heatedly. Oh, that reminds me, Kakashi said suddenly, turning to his female teammate. Rin, Obito's totally in love with you. It wouldn't do to let Obito die without telling her how he felt again, now would it? Really? He was going Obito a favor. What? Rin asked, surprised. Kakashi. Obito shouted and lunged at his friend. Kakashi smiled to himself as he ran from the enraged Uchiha. That had worked out very well. Better than he'd hoped, even. Not only was Obito alive, but they were well on their way to becoming friends and were reminding him so much of Naruto and Sasuke's rivalry that it was ridiculous. With Obito not having died for Rin's sake, she wouldn't be all depressed and go off and get herself killed. If Obito could be convinced to leave the Uchiha compound before the massacre, he knew the date, having dealt with Sasuke for years and was not above resorting to kidnapping to keep Obito safe that night. Maybe Obito could even take in Sasuke, so he'd stop brooding so much about having no family. He wasn't quite sure what to do about Minato, but since he knew about Madara and that was the only reason the Kyuubi attacked, well, he had a few years to figure something out. If nothing else, he could always take Naruto in if there was nothing to be done for Minato or Kushina. Speaking of his former, future students, for he would, of course, have to take them if only for old time's sake, he wondered what they had used their chance to time travel for. Surely they were using it for a noble purpose like he was, right? On the other hand, perhaps it was for the best that he'd never know. When Naruto heard about the chance to change the past, his first thought was, well, my childhood sucked so I might as well skip on to my Genin days. He realized something, though. While Sakura's fangirlness was annoying, especially as he was no longer blindly infatuated with her and liked her as a person now, it was nothing compared to Sasuke moping about revenge all the time. What's more, having to waste 4 years of his life tracking Sasuke down was kind of a drag and he didn't want to go through that again. And what on earth had the boy been thinking to go after Orochimaru or all people? For God's sake, the snake Sannin was even more of a pervert than Jiraiya as far as Naruto was concerned. Granted, he didn't go around spying on hot springs, not that Naruto knew of, at any rate, or declaring himself a super pervert, but then again at least Jiraiya didn't regularly go around giving hickeys to prepubescent girls and boys before convincing them to go live with him. So instead of starting at 12, Naruto elected to start at 8. Surely he could put up with a measly 4 years of continuing to be alone. Well, not completely alone if he played his cards right with Sasuke. The massacre was going to happen. If the ridiculously diplomatic third Hokage hadn't been able to stop it, an 8-year-old outcast like himself sure as hell wouldn't. So, what to do? By himself, not much. He could always follow Sasuke around until the other boy accepted that they were friends, in which case he might not be so bitter growing up and be less inclined to try and kill him later and abandon Konoha. Last time, Sasuke hadn't accepted it until he decided that if Naruto was going to try and stop him then he might as well get a Mangekyo Sharingan out of the deal. Naruto wandered around town as he pondered and eventually ended up at Ichiraku Ramen Bar. He grinned, pleased to see his favorite restaurant before Ayame had gone crazy and turned it into a Sukemen bar. Granted, he could easily turn it back into ramen, but it was rather, dare he say it, troublesome, and Ayame always yelled at him every time he did that. Entering the eating establishment, Naruto glanced around idly when he froze. Oh my god, is Kakashi actually on a date with Anko? And, hey, you two look familiar. Aren't you dead? He blurted out. Oops, so much for subtle. What do you mean, with Anko? Anko demanded suspiciously. Who else would he be out with? Because I swear to God, Hitaki, if you're cheating on me, I will emasculate you with a toothpick. Kakashi gulped. I would never do such a thing. I already have the most amazing girlfriend around right here. That's better, Anko said, sounding satisfied. Well, second most amazing, really, a man who looked vaguely like Sasuke said. And Naruto was pretty sure he'd seen him somewhere before, but not personally. Really sure he was supposed to be dead. Oh, well, it was possible he died sometime in the next 4 years or so. After all, she's not Rin. Eye twitching, Anko reached for a kunai. Don't mind him, the brown-haired woman, Rin, interceded smoothly. He's clearly biased. Now, that that's settled, there's something I need to talk to Naruto about. I shouldn't be long, Kakashi promised as he stood and practically dragged Naruto over to an empty corner of the room. Well, what have you got to say for yourself? What do you mean? Naruto asked, only half feigning ignorance. You seemed surprised to see me with Anko when you should know we've been dating for a little over 6 months now, and when you saw Rin and Obito, you said they were supposed to be dead, Kakashi pointed out, eyes deadly serious. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. Your eyes. My eyes. Kakashi repeated neutrally. You don't have a Sharingan, Naruto breathed, trying to get over how weird it looked to see his ex-teacher without a Hitai covering his eye or even a Sharingan eye. Kakashi just blinked at him, looking stunned. Naruto, he asked hesitantly. I thought we'd already established that you knew who I was, Naruto told him, wondering if he would have to somehow prove his identity. Well, that would be easy enough, as Kakashi already knew about the Kyuubi, but he wasn't exactly supposed to know yet. No, I mean, Kakashi shook his head, trying to sort his words out. You came back, too. I expected different timelines. Realizing that his teacher was being vague enough so that he, at 8, wouldn't realize what Kakashi was talking about unless he knew exactly what Kakashi was talking about, Naruto managed a small smile. Me too. I guess because we all did it together, the two of us ended up in the same spot. Did Sasuke and Sakura come back yet? Kakashi shook his head. Not that I'm aware of, and, believe me, I've kept my eye on you three. Sakura probably won't come back until she at least makes Genin, because the worst thing that happened to her before then was picked on for insecurities about her forehead, and she wouldn't very well wish to relive her childhood over that. I don't think she would be crazy enough to try and change anything about Sasuke's situation, and she could always make things up to when you were on my team again. As for Sasuke, I honestly don't know where he is. I expected he'd want to be here today, but maybe he doesn't think he can change it either, and I wouldn't blame him not to want to relieve the aftermath. That is why you're here, isn't it? The massacre. Naruto laughed sheepishly. Well, yeah. But let's get to that in a minute. Tell me what you did, first. They were your teammates, right? You managed to save them. Kakashi nodded. I saved Obito. Because of that, somewhere down the line, Rin didn't die. And they got together. I thought you told me once that your team was like ours in the beginning. Cheerful boy likes girl who likes emo boy, Naruto pointed out. Kakashi nodded again. That's true. However, after Obito died and made me promise to take care of Rin, I always saw her as the girl Obito loved, and it's not like I could change that after these years. Eventually, Rin realized that I was never going to be interested, and, over time, she fell for Obito. And you went with Anko. Naruto still couldn't believe it. Are you crazy? Kakashi shrugged. We're all crazy, Naruto, it's part of the job description. The most normal of all of us was Sakura, and look how useless she was until Tsunade got a hold of her and started to spread her craziness. In fact, I have a theory. The crazier the ninja, the more powerful they are. True, Naruto acknowledged. But I repeat, Anko, isn't she a little young for you? I'm not that old, you know, Kakashi replied, looking mildly affronted. Anko's only 2 years younger than me, and there's nothing wrong with a 22-year-old dating a 20-year-old. Whatever you say. Naruto didn't look convinced, but decided to let it drop. He found he really didn't need to know. Any other life-altering changes I should know about? Kakashi considered the question. He had already been in the past for a little over 10 years now, and a lot had changed in that time. Still, Naruto had said, life-altering, so, well, you're not an orphan, for one thing. What? Naruto's eyes bulged out. I have a mom. Everybody has a mother, Naruto, Kakashi said condescendingly. Honestly, it's like nobody gave you the talk. Naruto glared up at him. That reminds me. I don't think I will ever forgive you for leaving it to Jiraiya to give me that. Seriously, if I hadn't sworn off revenge, I would totally kick you for that. Well, it's a good thing you did, then, huh? Kakashi asked cheerfully. Anyway, to answer your real question, no, your mother is still dead. Just like before, she died shortly after childbirth because Madara showed up. And don't you dare feel guilty for that, it wasn't your fault, and God knows you've had more problems due to the Kyuubi over the years than anyone else. So, Naruto said hesitantly. Does that mean that, but how? Your father is still alive, Naruto, Kakashi told him, smiling genuinely at the small boy. But what about the Shinigami? Didn't they need a sacrifice to seal the Kyuubi? Naruto was confused. They did, Kakashi admitted, his grin fading. But the third Hokage sacrificed himself instead of the fourth. You killed the third Hokage? Naruto asked incredulously. I did not kill him, Kakashi snapped. He didn't sacrifice himself in the original timeline, so you must have done something, Naruto pointed out rationally. Kakashi sighed heavily. You have to understand, the last time no one knew what your father was going to do, just that he had a plan. Minato knew that if anyone knew what he was going to do, they would end up stopping him. Almost immediately after you were born, he rushed out to stop the Kyuubi's advance, and as such didn't really have any time to make provisions for you. He told Gamabunta to tell Jiraiya to spread the word that he wanted you to be a hero, but the third derailed that plan by keeping the details of the seal and your parentage a secret. So what did you do? Naruto pressed. I let it slip what Minato was planning, and the third decided he would rather be sacrificed to a Shinigami than come out of retirement, Kakashi explained. Naruto stared at him. You're joking. Well, it might have been a bit more complicated than that, Kakashi admitted. He said that your father was what Konoha needed right now, that he was too old to take the reins again, that you were going to have a hard enough life as a Jinchuriki without being an orphan, too, and needed someone to take care of you. Minato didn't like it, but in the end he agreed. So my father's the Hokage, huh? Naruto mused. He was saddened at the third's loss, of course, but he'd come to terms with it 5 years ago, so it didn't hit him as hard as it would have had it been, say, the very much still alive Tsunade. Does that mean people have to be nicer to me? Kakashi snorted. Kid, when your father said he wanted you to be seen as a hero, he meant it. His determination that your sacrifice be honored and the fact that your parentage was public knowledge, as well as Minato's own hero status, boosted by his defeat of the Kyuubi, well, let's just say that you won't need to bring half of Konoha back to life to get your hero's welcome this time. Well, that will make the next 4 years easier, Naruto decided. You're going to have to tell me about my father, though. If he's been raising me all these years, I'll probably be expected to know a bit more about him than the scraps of information I managed to collect from you and Jiraiya. Hell, even Gamabunta was more talkative than you two were. Of course I'll help you with any questions you may have, Kakashi promised. I do kind of have a date to get back to, though, so, What are your plans as far as tonight goes? What are yours? Naruto shot back. I don't think you went through all this effort to save Obito only to lose him now. A thought struck him. Wait, so much else has changed, is there even going to be a coup? Kakashi nodded solemnly. Your father is many things, Naruto, but he is not a miracle worker. The seeds of the Uchiha rebellion were sown since before Madara even left Konoha. And, of course, it doesn't help that your father actually saw Madara loitering around the day of the attack. He didn't recognize him, however, just knew that it was an Uchiha, and as Madara is supposed to be dead, it gave people a lot of reason for suspicion. Unlike the third, Minato refuses to let the council bully him into going along with them, but with Danzo having his little minions stalking the Uchiha and with Koharu and Homura's obvious distrust, the coup is supposed to occur sometime within the next week or so. Minato put off ordering it as long as he could, but in the end preventing another great shinobi war is more important than one clan. Itachi's to kill them tonight. What about Sasuke? I mean, we all know Itachi won't kill him, but he can't be left on his own again either, not after what happened last time. And what about Obito? Naruto inquired. Obito's loyalty to Minato was never in question, so the clan never told him of their plans for fear it would be discovered. He doesn't know about the coup, and he definitely doesn't know about Itachi's mission. As such, Minato made clear this Obito is not to be harmed, Kakashi exposited. I'm going to keep Obito away from the compound tonight so he won't get in the way. He actually found his own place and is in the process of moving out anyway. And as for Sasuke, well, Obito will probably end up taking him in, as he'll be his only remaining family member still in Konoha, and that way the both of us will be able to keep an eye on him and hopefully stop him from going off the deep end as far as revenge goes. Then what in the world am I here for? Naruto asked, frustrated. I didn't come all the way back here just to serve as Sasuke's moral support, which he won't need anyway once he comes back. He smirked as an idea came to him. Hey, whatever happened to Orochimaru? I know my father wouldn't spare him out of sentiment like the third did, so did he die, remain in Konoha, leave and join Akatsuki again? What? Kakashi frowned, unsure about the sudden change in topic. When Orochimaru's treachery was discovered, your father fought him and managed to drive him from Konoha. He would have killed him, but Orochimaru used his summons to start attacking Konoha, and by the time your father had brought out his own summons and turned his attention back to the battle, Orochimaru had managed to flee. I see. Naruto's smile was downright evil. What are you planning? Kakashi asked reluctantly, nearly positive that he did not, in fact, want to know. I don't actually know Itachi very well, but if nothing else I feel sorry for him for having to actually willingly spend time with Madara. Naruto shuddered. Total prick. And crazy as hell to boot. Besides, all things considered, he really didn't deserve what happened, and Sasuke probably wouldn't have been so traumatized by the massacre if it weren't for the fact that it was Itachi's doing. And if he had a good reason to hate Orochimaru, he wouldn't have gone off train under him, gone off the deep end, and start working for Akatsuki. What are you saying? Kakashi asked carefully. Let's blame everything on Orochimaru. Naruto suggested brightly. Later that night, Naruto was really starting to regret his plan. Of course, it was still his best chance of actually changing anything, but since the Sharingan could see through illusions and he'd need to fool Itachi or else face some very awkward questions, he'd had to actually transform himself. The only technique he had that did that was his Oroku no Jutsu and its variations. So he had managed to transform himself into Orochimaru, as a girl. Granted, Orochimaru had been a girl before. In fact, he was fairly sure Orochimaru had been a girl when he'd killed the third, but it was still weird. Of course, he really did have better things to worry about than that, but it was better that reminding himself, again, that as much as he wanted to, he couldn't help the people he saw screaming for help as Itachi methodically cut them down. Finally, he was done. And just in time, 2. As Naruto heard the distinct sounds of an angry mob coming up the street. He wondered briefly what Kakashi had come up with to get a lot of witnesses over to the Uchiha compound at 3 in the morning, but figured he'd probably find out soon enough. Itachi's head snapped up, startled. The Uchiha district was rather isolated from the rest of Konoha, half the problem, really, and there was no reason for anyone, let alone a lot of anyone's, to be here. Right on cue, Naruto jumped down in front of Itachi just as the first of the crowd came into view. Sure enough, Kakashi was being chased by a large crowd of angry people, most women. What? Itachi began. How dare you break into my house to peep at me? One of them screamed. How do you always get me into these kinds of situations? Obito lamented. I'm going to kill you, you ba Orochimaru. Anko gasped, stunned. What the hell are you doing here? Ah, Anko, my dear, it's been too long. Naruto greeted her amiably, his eyes never leaving Itachi's. How's the curse seal holding up? Any problems? You have a lot of nerve coming back here after what you did, she growled. Yes, I get that you're upset. We'll settle this later. Right now, I'm here for one reason and one reason alone. Naruto exclaimed. And that is? Itachi asked quietly, dropping into a defensive stance. Naruto marveled at the fact that Itachi was so quick to defend the village that had asked him to kill 318 of his family members not 2 minutes before, and his best friend before that to gain the necessary power. The Sharingan, of course, Naruto explained patiently. With that, I could learn any jutsu, at any time, with very little effort on my part. Of course, those pitiful fools had to charge at me, trying to arrest me for treason, or some other such nonsense, and so I killed them all. No matter, though, I'm sure your eyes will more than suffice. You killed the Uchiha? Kakashi asked, sounding horrified. You're a monster. I am above such plebeian labels, Naruto sniffed. He had to give Itachi props. Aside from a slight widening of the eyes, the Uchiha gave no indication that he was as confused as the rest of them, if not more so, because he knew what had actually happened to his clan and knew that Kakashi knew as well. Now, Naruto didn't actually really remember what Orochimaru used to fight, other than dead people and summons, but since he was supposed to be after every jutsu out there, he figured that gave him some leeway. He figured he might as well start with the earth clone technique he was fairly sure he'd seen Orochimaru use and go from there. After fighting Itachi for a few minutes, and 13 or not, the boy was good, the crowd snapped out of their stupor, remembered that most of them were ninja, and started attacking Naruto as well. I'm sorry I'm late. Naruto heard Sasuke's slightly breathless voice from the back of the crowd. What's going on? What's this? Another Uchiha? Naruto asked, sounding positively delighted. I was so afraid that I had managed to kill all of them, so this boy would be my only option as a host, but now I see that there is a spare. How wonderful. This is getting a little crowded, so I'll take my leave now, but never forget, Orochimaru of the Sannin, will be back to steal your body, mark my words, he declared, before using the body flicker to make good his escape. Once he was far enough away, he transformed back into himself and headed back to the compound. Hey guys, are we having a party? Naruto asked brightly. No, my entire family was just murdered, Sasuke snapped at him. He looked ill. And now the world's spinning. With that, Sasuke fell to the ground in a faint. I should probably go report this to the Hokage, Itachi said at last, no doubt wondering whether or not this strange new development meant he was still going to need to go into exile or not. Great idea, I'll come too, Kakashi nodded. Obito, do you want to take Sasuke with you to your new place? He can't really stay here, all things considering. Of course, Obito nodded, picking up the small child and heading off. Naruto, I'm not entirely sure why you're up this late, but you are to go straight to bed, okay? Kakashi said sternly. Oh, absolutely, Naruto agreed. And he would. Just as soon as he saw the end result of his meddling. Itachi. I didn't expect to see you again. Is it done? Minato asked heavily as Itachi appeared at the Hokage tower. He sounded sad. Kakashi. What are you doing here? I'm just tagging along, Kakashi shrugged. Yes, Itachi answered. They're all dead but myself, Obito, and Sasuke. Your brother? Minato asked. He's only 8. He has no idea, Itachi explained. I see. Well, I suppose he poses no threat then, Minato decided. Were there any problems? I'm not sure, Itachi confessed. Minato's gaze sharpened. What do you mean you're not sure? What happened? Right after I finished, Kakashi appeared, chased by a large crowd of irate women, Itachi explained. Kakashi held up his hands in defense. I had completely forgotten that was happening tonight, he lied. Minato looked skeptical, but nodded. Then what? Then Orochimaru appeared, claimed he had killed everyone, and was planning on stealing my body. We fought, then he left after Sasuke showed up. Said now he had a spare, in case he couldn't possess me, Itachi explained, sounding mildly outraged at the thought of Orochimaru doing that to his little brother. Orochimaru. Minato's eyebrows rose. He took credit for killing everyone in front of a large crowd of witnesses. Are you sure it was him? Itachi coughed. Well, actually it was a woman, but there was no illusion and Anko identified him as her former mentor. I see, Minato trailed off. But why would Orochimaru take the blame for this? Whoever is said to have wiped out nearly the entire Uchiha clan is sure to gain a fearsome reputation, Kakashi suggested. Maybe he was after that. Maybe, Minato allowed. Still, I suppose we can deal with that later. For now, since Orochimaru has oh so generously offered himself up as a scapegoat, you are, of course, free to stay in Konoha. I'm sure Obito would be glad to have you, Kakashi offered. After all, you're only 13 and he'll probably want custody of Sasuke. Alright, Itachi said slowly, realizing full well just how lucky he'd gotten. Well, this isn't really how I pictured today ending, Minato confessed, leaning back on his chair. Still, perhaps it's for the best. As much as Sasuke wanted to see his parents and various other family members again, he had long since come to realize that as long as the factions following the teachings of the Senju were in control, his clan would always be at odds with the government. With Madara having driven the Kyuubi to attack Konoha, which he certainly couldn't affect, being less than 3 months old at the time, things only got worse. If Itachi couldn't stop the attempted coup, then he certainly couldn't, and it wasn't worth the chance to see his clan again to have to watch Itachi destroy them and abandon him again. So Sasuke had elected to come back at 11. His life after the massacre was really nothing worth repeating, but he wanted to come back a little before he graduated so he would have some time to refamiliarize himself with his past and change anything he didn't like. Not to mention brushing up on his taijutsu and working to get his body accustomed to his more interesting jutsu. As Sasuke put the finishing touches on Danzo's suicide letter, he had realized that Homura and Koharu were too set in their ways and could not lead Konoha into the future but did not wish to be tried and executed for treason, so he was going to die with them, and deactivated his Sharingan. He reflected that it really shouldn't have been that easy to poison the council and future Rokudaime. Ah well, he was doing Konoha a favor, really, not only by taking out some dangerously old-fashioned and extremely influential leaders but by letting the village know that its security failed and hopefully inspiring them to correct that. On his way back to his apartment, he bumped into the most annoying person he hadn't succeeded in killing. Hey Sasuke. Naruto greeted him cheerfully. What are you doing out this late at night? What are you doing? Sasuke replied. Midnight ramen run, Naruto explained. I always forget to go during the day. I see, Sasuke said. If it were anybody else, that would have come across as completely ridiculously and obviously untrue, but since it was Naruto, that really was one of the most likely explanations. I'm headed home. Naruto shot him a quizzical look. You're heading the wrong way for that, aren't you? Unless you want to take the really scenic route. Don't be ridiculous, My apartment is this way, Sasuke disagreed. And really, how would Naruto know anyway? And why was he being so friendly? Then again, perhaps it was just that he was actually answering the blonde boy when he had really been 11, he would have just grunted, possibly said something belittling, and left. Not unless Obito kicked you out, Naruto replied. And I probably would have heard about that. Who's Obito? Sasuke asked automatically. Naruto's eyes widened. Who's Obito? Sasuke, why do you hate Orochimaru? Who said I hate Orochimaru? Sasuke asked neutrally. For that matter, who said I've even met him? A smile spread across Naruto's face. Sasuke, you're back. Back, Sasuke repeated, feeling a little out of his depth. Yeah, you've finally decided to show up. Kakashi came back 13 years ago and I came back 3, Naruto explained. Sakura still hasn't shown up yet, but Kakashi and I are betting that will happen next year when we make Genin. I see, Sasuke said. So we're in the same timeline then. Yeah, Kakashi and I were pretty surprised too. Fortunately, after a few weeks my alternate timeline memories started coming in because when I first got back, I was confused as hell. With Kakashi having already been around for a decade, he started changing things left and right. For instance, did you know that when that Kumo ambassador tried to kidnap Hinata, Kakashi was on hand to incapacitate him without killing him so Neji's father wouldn't have to die? Naruto asked. Why? Sasuke wondered. Naruto shrugged. Because he knew it was coming, I guess. Also, I get the feeling he kind of got tired listening to Guy complain about how fatalistic Neji was all the time before I used my therapy jutsu on him, and as most of his change followed Hinata's dad explaining what really happened that day, he figured that incident was the root cause of Neji's complex. So he did it because Neji's pain was annoying him. Sasuke summarized. Basically, Naruto agreed. But hey, that's why I ended up coming back. Not because of Neji, but because your sulking was really annoying and I didn't realize that you'd be following me here. I did not sulk, Sasuke told him. Naruto snorted. Keep telling yourself that, Sasuke. And there's no such thing as therapy jutsu, Sasuke reminded him. Actually, I think you'll find that there is, Naruto corrected. Apparently Obito is good at that too and Kakashi passed along my name for it, so over the last 13 years it's become quite well known. Granted, I'm not the originator anymore, but since it's official, I feel vindicated anyway. You would. So besides that, what's changed? Who's Obito? Why am I supposed to hate Orochimaru? And what did you do? Sasuke fired off. Obito is your cousin, Naruto began. Sasuke blinked. I have relatives. But the massacre. Obito originally died 2 years or so before we were born. He was on Kakashi's team and, as such, he was on my father's team, Naruto continued. When he died, he gave his Sharingan to Kakashi. Kakashi kind of, obsessed, as you probably noticed, and came back to save him. Since he was on my father's team, your family realized he had quite a bit of loyalty to Konoha and didn't tell him about the coup, and Kakashi was supposed to keep him out of the compound that night. I have relatives, Sasuke repeated, trying to grasp this basic fact. Or a relative. Whatever. As for Orochimaru, well, I told you that I didn't want to deal with you sulking, right? Naruto asked. I came back to the day of the massacre so I could be there for you, afterwards or whatever, so you'd hopefully grow up less emo. I ran into Kakashi and he filled me in on what had been going on. Since Obito would probably end up taking you in as you were kind of lacking in family, which he did, I decided I didn't want my trip to be worthless, and so we ended up blaming everything on Orochimaru. Blaming what on Orochimaru? Sasuke asked, confused. Naruto's grin widened. The massacre. You. Sasuke trailed off. You blamed the Uchiha massacre on Orochimaru. How? Why? And what happened to Itachi, then? I used my Oroku no Jutsu to turn myself into girl Orochimaru, Naruto began. Seeing Sasuke cringe, he continued, I know, Gross, right? Had to be done, though. Trying to explain why I was framing Orochimaru might have led to some awkward questions, and the Sharingan can see through illusions, so I had no other choice. As for the why, well, if it hadn't been for his stupid curse seal, then you wouldn't have been so much moodier and crazier than normal, and if it hadn't been for him killing the third, then your brother wouldn't have come back to protect you and wound up making you catatonic. Not to mention that he was the one who offered you a place outside of Konoha to begin with. The way I see it, if it hadn't been for him, you wouldn't have left. It was still my choice, Sasuke felt obligated to point out. Naruto rolled his eyes. You're my best friend and he was a crazy pedophile. Besides, was I supposed to blame you for what happened? I suppose not, Sasuke conceded. As hard to believe as a 13-year-old prodigy wiping out the clan might have been, an 8-year-old above-average academy student would have been far more ridiculous. Not to mention that Itachi would have found a way to take responsibility. And speaking of him, what happened? If people think Orochimaru is responsible, what happened to him? After he killed the clan, I had Kakashi round up a large crowd of witnesses, mostly women. I get the feeling he did something perverted, but he still won't tell me what. And they chased him to the Uchiha district where I claimed I had killed them all, attacked your brother, mentioned how much I wanted a Sharingan and that I would be back for either your eyes or Itachi's, and left, Naruto summarized. Since everyone thought Orochimaru was responsible and your brother had heroically managed to fend him off, there was no need for him to leave, so he lives with you, Obito, and Rin. He's still really stoic whenever you don't happen to be in the room and doesn't like talking about the Uchiha or the massacre, but it's not nearly as bad as before. Sasuke stared at Naruto. Don't take this the wrong way, but I think I love you. Naruto laughed. I won't. Don't worry, but Kiba might. He couldn't understand why I was so determined to bring you back after you were being such a moron, so he eventually decided I was in love with you. Sasuke twitched. I never liked Kiba. When you two got together, you were 5 times as bad. I'm sorry to hear that, Naruto said, not looking sorry at all. Especially as you're going to be seeing a lot more of him as your brother's dating his sister. What was that? Sasuke asked, sure he'd misheard the other boy. Your brother is dating Kiba's sister, Hana, Naruto said again. Why? Sasuke demanded. Naruto shrugged. Who knows how love works? Obito married his other teammate, Rin, and Kakashi's dating Anko. Anko. Sasuke narrowed his eyes, trying to remember her. Wait, wasn't she that insane proctor for the second stage of the Chunin exams? Yep. Naruto beamed. He didn't want to propose until either you or Sakura got here, and he'll actually get married once the team is back together. Anko kind of scares me, but she's pretty awesome. She can make a weapon out of anything. You two get on quite well. What could we possibly have in common? Sasuke honestly couldn't think of anything. And why we even know each other? Well, she's your guardian's best friend's girlfriend and they double date a lot. Anko was also Orochimaru's apprentice that he gave a cursed seal to and abandoned. You two often have long in-depth conversations about how much you hate him and plot out various revenge scenarios, Naruto offered. And trust me when I say that those greatly disturb everyone else. Sasuke considered that. Well, it's true that I haven't forgiven Orochimaru for not only presuming to take my body but for interrupting my fight with Itachi and driving him to death by exhaustion that much faster, so I suppose I can work with that. Naruto groaned. Of course you can. Seriously, is it even possible for you to be happy without having someone you need to seek revenge on? I don't know, Sasuke confessed. But why mess with success? Because it's a pain in the for the rest of us, Naruto complained. Speaking of, why did you decide to come back? It had something to do with vengeance, right? But of course, Sasuke looked surprised that Naruto even had to ask. Even if reluctantly admitted that maybe the citizens of Konoha deserve peace after the massacre, the council and Danzo do not. You killed them. Naruto was shocked. They were meeting to discuss Konoha policy, I poisoned their tea, then used the Sharingan to fake a suicide note from Danzo, Sasuke explained. For the love of God, Sasuke, do you know how people are going to react to that? You can't just go around killing village elders every time you feel like it. Naruto burst out. I just did, Sasuke pointed out. But no worries, I feel justice has been served by Konoha as far as the massacre goes, so I see no reason to go after any other elders or the Hokage. Madara, however. Good, Naruto said, because if you went after my dad then I might need to rethink that, no revenge, thing. Your dad? Sasuke was surprised. Isn't he dead? Kakashi meddled and so the third sealed the Kyuubi, Naruto explained. Kakashi killed the third. Sasuke couldn't believe it. Naruto smiled. That's what I said, too. He claims the Sandaime made his own choices. Speaking of people making their own choices, like it or not, your brother made his as well. Are you sure you're going to be okay facing him again? Because remember, you're not supposed to know that he's the one who killed your clan and neither am I. Only my father, Kakashi, and Jiraiya are supposed to know since you killed the Unholy Alliance. The what? Sasuke blinked. That's Kakashi and my codename for the council and Danzo, Naruto explained. Since they always disagree with dad and always side with each other. I think I'll be okay, Sasuke decided. Right or wrong, I forgave Itachi after I found out that Konoha had ordered him to do it, so as long as I don't slip up and mention that I know it was him, I should be good. I don't see why we'd talk about the massacre even if I did know, because I still don't feel that they deserved to die, so it would just end up being very awkward. That's probably for the best, Naruto agreed. Madara's really good at framing his explanations so you'll immediately change long-held beliefs over the course of a conversation, huh? It's kind of like my therapy jutsu, but the opposite. Giving people issues jutsu. That's not nearly as catchy. Yeah, Madara was pretty good at that, Sasuke nodded. Crazy as hell though. Seriously, the moon. I know, Naruto said. It's kind of a wonder someone that insane managed to keep it together long enough to convince so many other people to follow him. Well, most of those people were also insane, Sasuke pointed out. True, Naruto conceded. So do you have any more questions for me or do you want to head back? What's our relationship supposed to be like? Sasuke inquired, honestly curious. He was sure that Naruto had tried to make friends with his younger self, but he was equally certain that little him wouldn't be very receptive. The same as it always was, I guess, Naruto decided. In this timeline, I always knew Kakashi as he was my father's student and nostalgic, and after I got back, I tagged along when he hung out with Obito, and so eventually you were forced to admit we were friends. We probably will never act like normal friends, but then neither do Ino and Sakura, and they manage to be functional. That would depend upon your definition of functional, Sasuke said dryly. So, are you planning on doing anything about the fact that I killed them? Naruto sighed. I do not approve, obviously, especially as this was murder, no other way of looking at it. We'll have to tell Kakashi, obviously, but other than that, well, I suppose I'm just glad you stuck to the agreement we made about not trying to destroy Konoha anymore. Thank you, Sasuke said sincerely. Then a thought struck him. Hey, since I won't be getting new memories for a few more weeks, what's this cousin of mine like, anyway? Well, he's a lot like me, for one, Naruto answered. You know, on the other hand, maybe I should turn myself in. It wouldn't do to let people panic unnecessarily. When the two boys reached the strange house that Naruto swore he lived in, he found Kakashi sitting at the table with his brother and an older Uchiha who he assumed was Obito. Where have you guys been? Obito asked, not even bothering to wonder why Naruto was with Sasuke. Apparently they really were friends. I was on a midnight ramen run when I ran into Sasuke training, Naruto lied. I made him come with me, but we got held up when he burned his mouth and swore vengeance. I see, Obito said. Apparently that wasn't a novel occurrence. Oh, Kakashi, Naruto asked. Sasuke finally decided to show up. Did he? Kakashi raised an eyebrow. You certainly took your time, didn't you? Now you have no excuse not to propose, Naruto informed him. I'll get around to it, Kakashi insisted. Hi, Ni-san, Sasuke said, unsure of really what else to say. After all, the last time they had been on anything resembling good terms had been the day before the massacre, but he'd been so strained then. Probably trying to decide whether or not he could actually bring himself to kill his little brother. Itachi smiled at him. Swearing vengeance again, Sasuke. One of these days that's going to get you in trouble. Don't I know it? Sasuke muttered. Still, I'm sure I can handle it. And if not, you'll bail me out, right? Always, Itachi promised. So what did he do? Kakashi asked Naruto quietly. Wiped out the unholy alliance, Naruto replied. Kakashi blinked. That's all. I know, I was surprised too, Naruto confided. I can't even say that that's a bad thing, given what we know Danzo's capable of and how utterly unhelpful the council always was, Kakashi admitted. I wonder who Minato will appoint to replace them. Well, he did say that he was looking for a way to get Ba-chan to come back for more than her biannual hospital inspections, Naruto pointed out. As for the other one, I don't know. Jiraiya would seem like the obvious choice, but his spy network is kind of personally held together by him, so. Nara Shikaku would be a good pick, Kakashi mused. Seeing as how he's probably the smartest person in the village and a tactical genius as well. So it looks like Sasuke's revenge-seeking tendencies actually had a positive outcome this time, Naruto said, sounding almost odd. Yes, but we must never, ever tell him this. Ever. If he's bad as far as that goes now, just imagine how bad it would be if he had encouragement. Sakura wasn't even really sure she wanted to go back in the first place. Sure, there had been some rough spots in her life, notably the period when Sasuke was in Oto, Naruto was traveling with Jiraiya, and Kakashi was AWOL, but for the most part things had worked out in the end. The odds of Sasuke actually coming back after everything were astronomical enough as it was, but combined with Tsunade recovering, Konoha enduring, and Naruto surviving, it was a miracle, plain and simple, and she didn't want to go back to try and fix things and inadvertently screw anything up. Just the same, Kakashi, Naruto, and, to a lesser extent, Sasuke seemed so dead set on the idea that she couldn't help but go along with it. After all three of them were going to disappear from her world and she'd be damned if she'd be left behind again. Her life before graduating from the academy had only been remarkable in its simplicity. In a group where chakra deformations, demon possessions, seal enslavements, clan pressures, family massacres, and revenge-seeking were the norm, her mundane life with her family and friends made her a bit of an oddity. After all, she'd been willing to throw away her best friend once over a silly little crush on a barely pubescent boy. Thankfully, she'd realized just how stupid that was and, well, she'd need to fix that immediately. If she were going to go back at all, reliving her days of being bullied was really kind of pointless. She wouldn't really have a lot of chakra if she went back before becoming Tsunade's apprentice, and she'd need to do some serious training to get her taijutsu back up to her usual levels, but Sasuke, Naruto, and Kakashi had all moved on by the time she had sought out the Godime, so going back to then would be like not bothering to go back at all. Sakura still didn't understand what exactly had gone down as far as the massacre was concerned and doubted that anyone would ever really know the true story, as Itachi had died, Danzo and the council claimed ignorance, and Madara was practically a pathological liar. She couldn't do anything there. All of Kakashi's issues seemed to stem from back before she was even born, and he would have no reason to be interested in her even if there was something there. Naruto had been neglected his whole life, but he'd managed to cope well enough that waiting until she graduated wouldn't really do any harm. Sakura woke up early the day after the graduation exam, and when she absently ran her fingers through her tangled hair, she was surprised at how long it was. She let a smile cross her face as she remembered Ino telling everyone that Sasuke-kun only liked girls with long hair right after she'd decided to grow hers out. Sakura, like everyone else, had believed her, which was funny looking back on it because as far as she knew Sasuke's two biggest requirements for a girl he could potentially be interested in were not being useless or a fangirl. Which at the time, among the girls they knew, basically meant Tenten. Of course, Sasuke barely knew her and she was obviously going to end up with Neji, so it's not like that would have worked out even if Sasuke hadn't up and left. Sakura searched around her room until she found a kunai half hidden under her bed. Just like before, she was a kunoichi reborn and wanted to look the part. She went to the bathroom and, holding her hair about the trash can, mimicked her initial change from rather sheltered little girl to determined ninja in training. After evening out the ends a bit, she eyed her reflection. Not bad. She looked a lot more like she remembered now, even if she was younger. Longer hair had always symbolized her fangirl days to her and she was glad to be rid of it. Unfortunately, her wardrobe left much to be desired as the long dresses she had worn for most of her time as a genin really weren't the most practical for the life of a shinobi. Still, it was only the day of the initial team meeting and as the survival training would be the day after, she figured it would be fine if she went and bought some shorts after she was dismissed for the day. Sakura's mother stared at her when she went down to the kitchen. "What's for breakfast?" she asked brightly. "I'm starving." "I thought you were on a diet," her dad asked without looking up from his meal. "I was," Sakura admitted, feeling a little embarrassed at her childhood silliness. "But then I realized that I'm going to need energy if I'm going to be a kunoichi and all the exercise I'm sure to get will more than burn off any unwanted calories." "What happened to your hair, Sakura?" her mother asked as she placed her breakfast in front of her. "I cut it," Sakura said simply. "It seemed kind of obvious." "I can see that. But, why?" her mother pressed. Sakura shrugged. "Well, today I meet my genin team and start my life as a kunoichi. As such, I might as well at least try and act the part. Having my hair down is just begging someone to try and immobilize me by grabbing it, so I figured I could either cut it or wear my hair in a ponytail and look like I'm copying Ino. And that's just not going to happen." Sakura's father glanced up at her. "It looks nice," he said approvingly. "I'm glad you've decided to take being a ninja more seriously. It's a very dangerous line of work, after all, and we don't want you to get hurt." As Sakura's parents were civilians, they really had no idea just how dangerous it could be, and if Sakura had it her way, they never would. Last time it had taken Pain's total annihilation of Konoha before they had idea of the kinds of things she had routinely gone up against. "Don't worry," she assured them. "I'm sure our instructor will be more than capable. Even if he was lazy. And a pervert." And she never really did understand why he wore a mask all the time. Granted, she was so used to seeing him with it that when she had seen him without it had freaked her out, but she'd seen his genin picture and he'd been wearing one then, so when had he started? "And why? I will need to go shopping when I get back to get some shorts and things to wear that won't get in the way." "But you look so cute in that dress," her mother protested. Sakura rolled her eyes. "I'm sure I can look cute in more practical clothing, Mom, but even if I don't, I'm not there to be eye candy." "Not this time." Sakura was hurrying towards the academy, deep in thought, when she crashed into someone. "I'm sorry," she said automatically. "Don't worry about it," Itachi assured her with a smile. "It was an accident." "Wait, what?" I Itachi," Sakura shrieked. "Yes, do I know you?" he asked, tilting his head quizzically. What? How? Why are you here?" Sakura demanded, not answering the question. Fortunately, he was not wearing his usual Akatsuki cloak or she probably would have passed out from shock. It was close, though. "I am escorting Kakashi to the academy as Anko and Obito are both on a mission, and if left to his own devices, Kakashi would probably show up sometime this afternoon," Itachi explained. Sakura managed to tear her eyes from Itachi's. They were black, not Sharingan red, which was another surprise, and saw that not only was Kakashi standing behind Itachi, but Sasuke and Naruto were too. All three members of her future team were looking at her curiously. Anko. My fiancé, Kakashi explained. You're getting married. Okay. Now that was almost stranger than Itachi's presence. Right after the Chunin exams, Kakashi confirmed. Hey Sakura-chan, Naruto said suddenly. Do you think Shikamaru is more likely to end up with Temari or Ino? Temari, for sure, Sakura replied automatically. She's in Konoha far too often for it just to be diplomatic, and besides, I think Ino's got a thing for Sai. Suddenly, she realized where she was or rather when and stammered out, I mean. Welcome to the party, Kakashi greeted her, looking like he was smiling behind his mask. Sasuke, you owe Naruto and I 500 ryo each. I know, Sasuke grumbled, reaching into his pocket and pulling out the stated sum before shoving it towards the winners of whatever little bet they had going. Damn it, did she have to be so predictable? You're the one who bet against it, Kakashi pointed out. Well, I thought, any day but today, was pretty good odds, Sasuke said defensively. Maybe if you hadn't run off to go be a moron then you'd know Sakura-chan better, Naruto told him. What the hell is going on? Sakura asked, feeling more confused by the second. Don't worry, Itachi assured her, or tried to. Seeing as how he was supposed to be a missing nin, it wasn't very reassuring. Granted, he apparently was never actually evil, but it was still unsettling. They get like that a lot, it's like they're in their own little world. We'll explain it soon enough, Sakura-chan, Naruto promised. Frowning slightly but knowing that she'd get the chance to interrogate them soon enough, Sakura followed them into the building. Iruka was standing in front of the class, trying to get them to quiet down, which was no easy feat considering they were all so excited to have finally passed. Well, kind of passed. Okay. So everyone's here except, oh dear God, what are you doing here Kakashi? He demanded. Kakashi raised his eyebrows. And wait, was that two eyes he had? What happened to his Sharingan? What in the world was going on here? Since when did Sasuke and Naruto act like they were friends and even know Kakashi at all? Had she accidentally entered an alternate dimension? I'm supposed to test a team today. You should probably know that, Iruka, seeing as you were part of the team that assigned me. Assigned? You? Iruka snorted. You demanded your team and wouldn't take no for an answer. Let's not quibble over semantics, Kakashi said airily. And I was referring to the fact that you're only 5 minutes late, Iruka said, still looking shocked at this fact. Sakura looked up at the clock. It was true. Wow. Seeing as how Kakashi always used to joke about how the only reason he'd lived as long as he had was because he kept arriving late for death and so it got tired of waiting for him and just left, this really was quite remarkable. I don't know what you're talking about, Kakashi lied. I confiscated his books and threatened to give them to Anko if he didn't show up, Itachi explained. You're a miracle worker, Itachi, Iruka said, shaking his head in amazement. Sakura was also amazed. Why in the world weren't people freaking out or at least slightly surprised to see Itachi here? I have to go, Itachi said, poking his brother in the forehead. Be good and don't fail. Yeah, Sasuke grumbled, rubbing his forehead. Sakura watched teams 1 through 6 get assigned. The Junin, she noted, appeared to be simply going through the motions. None of the kids were from any ninja clans and she didn't remember ever seeing any of the among the ranks of the Konoha shinobi. Clearly, they weren't expected to be one of the 3 teams that passed. Teams 10 and 8, however, were entirely made up of representatives of strong shinobi clans and the recreating of the Ino-Shika Cho team was a little suspect. Sasuke and she represented the best in the class and the best kunoichi, so that probably wasn't coincidental either. Wow, that was kind of brutal, huh? All those kids wasting years in the academy and they'd never even get a chance to really graduate unless there were a lack of clan kids in a class. Team 7 will be Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and Namikaze Naruto, and it will be led by Hitaki Kakashi, Iruka announced, causing Sakura to narrow her eyes in confusion once more. Namikaze Naruto. Sure, the truth of Naruto's parentage had eventually come out, but that was years in the future. Why was this common knowledge now? If she ever saw her Kakashi again, she was going to kill him for giving her a faulty jutsu. Sure, she'd ended up in the past, but she'd meant to go back to her past, not an alternate universes. Well, let's begin by introducing yourselves, Kakashi suggested once they'd reached their meeting spot. We all know who we are already, but it wouldn't do to start the team off on the wrong foot this time, now would it? Let's go with likes, dislikes, dreams for the futures, and what you changed when you went back in time. Went back in time, Sakura repeated blankly. Then it clicked. We ended up in the same timeline. And I'm the last to come back. And that's why nothing makes any sense. It's your own fault for choosing not to come back until the last possible moment, Sasuke told her bluntly. If it weren't for the fact you all were apparently changing things every time you turned around, there would have been no need to go back further, Sakura defended herself. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, Naruto grinned at her. In a few weeks, your memories of this timeline will come back in. I don't think things should be that different with you, as our changes only really affected you peripherally. Oh, I did make Sasuke declare that he could never be with anyone who would throw away their friends over him, so you and Ino are still speaking, but really that's probably the biggest difference for you personally. You did that. Sakura couldn't help but smile. Thank you. I was wondering how I could fix that. Well, that and the fact that since I already knew everything and Sasuke's just as competitive as I am, we're tied for best in the class, and the only reason we managed to avoid graduating early is by failing to show up to take the final exam a few times, Naruto said, almost as an afterthought. That's why Kakashi had to fight so hard to get the three of us. Without me being the dead last to balance you two out, people were saying our team was stacked. Fortunately, he has an in with the Hokage. Since I was the first to come back, I'll go first, Kakashi announced. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I like masks, Jiraiya's books, and being late. I dislike it when someone uses one of the first two against me, especially if it's to make me show up somewhere on time. My dream for the future is to get you three to pass the Chunin exams on your first try, as that hasn't happened since the Sannin, and when I got back 14 years ago, I saved the life of my best friend, Uchiha Obito, so I did not receive his Sharingan. Later on, my other teammate Rin also survived, and I let the Sandaime know that Minato-sensei was planning on sacrificing himself to seal the Kyuubi, so he decided to sacrifice himself instead. You killed the third? Sakura asked, horrified. Sasuke and Naruto exchanged smirks and held their hands out to Kakashi. Grumbling, the Junin handed over some money. For the last time, I did not kill the third. He made his own choices and he should be remembered as a hero, not my victim. Well, Kakashi, Naruto began. I can see your point of view, I really can, but seeing as how Sakura, Sasuke, and I all had the exact same reaction, I'd say you're outvoted. You killed the third. Kakashi looked like he wanted to strangle the blonde, but managed to restrain himself. Since you were the second to return, why don't you go next, Naruto? Alright, Naruto said agreeably. My name is Namikaze Naruto. Since my father's still alive in Hokage, I like ramen and having therapy jutsu be considered a legitimate shinobi tool, and I dislike revenge and idiots who chase after it at the expense of everything else. My dream for the future is, of course, to be Hokage and also to be able to help all of my old and future friends. When I came back, I impersonated Orochimaru and claimed credit for the Uchiha massacre in front of a large crowd of witnesses Kakashi had managed to round up, causing Sasuke to become obsessed with revenge on the snake pedophile until he came back. So that's why Itachi's here? Sakura asked. And no one's running away panicked. Yep. Naruto confirmed. He and Sasuke live with Obito and his wife Rin, who Kakashi and Minato kept out of the loop as far as the whole massacre thing went. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke went next. I like revenge, getting stronger, and tomatoes. I dislike sweet things, fangirls, and people who forget to tell me that Tsunade found a way to reverse the corrosive damage the Mangekyo causes with a relatively simple jutsu you perform within a few seconds of using it, and my dream is to get revenge on everyone I feel has wronged me in any way, including, but not limited to, Orochimaru, Kabuto, and Madara. To be fair, Kakashi said, we were concerned you would use it in front of someone when you're not even supposed to have it yet, and we didn't want you to go off the rails seeking vengeance on insanely powerful shinobi before you'd even graduated. Our first mission outside of Konoha. Naruto's going to have a near-death experience. I don't want to have to hide the Mangekyo now that there's really no downside to using it, Sasuke said flatly. As long as it's heroic, Naruto agreed. Maybe I can sacrifice myself to save you. That would put us both in a good light. No mention of Danzo or the council. Sakura asked, intrigued. Half the reason you wanted to destroy Konoha was because you wanted to kill them. Have you gotten over it? She asked, sounding skeptical. Naruto snorted. Sasuke, get over something. That's funny. He wasn't finished, you know. Sasuke glared at Naruto. When I got back last year, I poisoned the Danzo and the council and forged a suicide note from Danzo claiming he'd killed the council for the good of the village. Given that the new council, Nara Shikaku and Tsunade, aren't evil, and being a council member forced Tsunade to stay in Konoha and figure out how to deal with the Mangekyo Sharingan, I stand by Danzo's statement and you will never convince me otherwise. Danzo's statement, Naruto repeated. You wrote the note. Which might explain why I agree with it, Sasuke noted. I see, Sakura said, trying to assimilate all the information. Her teammates had certainly been busy. She couldn't wait until her memories returned so she could try and make sense of all of this. My name is Haruno Sakura. I like people who believe in and inspire others, and also dislike revenge-obsessed idiots who throw everything away in its pursuit. My dream is to become the best medic Nin Konoha has ever seen and to never be left behind again. Since arriving this morning I got a haircut and plan on getting a more appropriate wardrobe for tomorrow. That's it? Sasuke asked incredulously. At Sakura's sheepish nod, he snorted. So even though you came back in time for the sole purpose of not being useless, when it came to making changes you still ended up being pretty useless. I've only been back for a few hours, give me a break. Sakura snapped. I saved Obito's life within an hour of being back, Kakashi told her. By the time I was back for as long as you were, I had framed Orochimaru for the Uchiha massacre, Naruto added. By the time I was back for 20 minutes, I had wiped out 3 village elders, Sasuke pointed out. Sakura crossed her arms, annoyed. I really hate you guys sometimes, you know that. The next day when Sakura stepped out of her house to head towards the training fields where the bell test was going to take place, she saw Naruto leaning against a tree. What are you doing here? She asked. I'm not, Naruto replied. Pardon? Sakura asked. I'm not here. I'm at Ichiraku's ramen stand, Naruto explained. Are you sure? Sakura asked. Because it looks like you're here. I'm a clone, Naruto explained. Or rather, his clone did. I figured Kakashi wouldn't show up anytime soon, so Sasuke and I decided to stake his house out. Sure enough, he was planning on arriving 6 hours after we were supposed to meet, so we decided to go to Ichiraku's, and I figured if we just left you hanging for 6 hours, you'd probably kill us. Especially me. Damn straight I would, Sakura agreed. To Ichiraku's it is. 6 hours later, the finally reunited Team 7 made their way back to their training grounds for their final exam. Of course, they knew Kakashi would pass them either way, and Naruto's dad, who was apparently still Hokage, was sure to be pissed if his son was failed by his former student, but it would still be nice to get those damn bells for once. Especially as Sakura was sure Kakashi had made sure to be completely up to date on Jiraiya's novels so Naruto couldn't threaten to spoil them and have get the bells that way like last time. You know the drill, Kakashi said, sounding bored. I have 2 bells, you need to get them before noon or you suck. He reached down to pat the bells attached to his belt only to realize they weren't there. What the? Where are they? You mean these bells? Sakura asked innocently, holding up the 2 bells. How'd you get those? Kakashi demanded. I stole them during brunch, Sakura explained. The test hadn't started yet, Sakura, Kakashi reminded her. In the shinobi world playing fair won't get you very far, Sakura countered. And I did get them before noon. And what's more, I'm going to give them to my teammates as I don't want them to fail. With that, she placed on in Naruto's hand and the other in Sasuke's. Kakashi groaned. You know, if you had just told us you had them at the restaurant, we wouldn't have had to come all the way out here. Fine, whatever, pass. I'm sure you're all shocked. How's that for useless? Sakura asked triumphantly. Team 7, Minato greeted them as they stood in front of him to receive their next mission. You have managed to fail every single D-rank mission we have. What do you have to say for yourself? That takes talent. Naruto volunteered. Naruto, Minato said sternly. What? Have you ever tried to fail at some of those? Naruto shot back. How did we manage to fail at finding Tora? Sakura asked. Since we did, in fact, find Tora. That cat hasn't been the same since you brought it back and, from what I hear, practically has a panic attack every time it spots one of you, Minato pointed out. That's very strange, Sasuke said neutrally. I'm sure it is. You can't babysit because the children invariably insist on throwing stick, kunai, at the people around them for moving target practice. You can't go shopping in a neighboring village because you compete to see who can get the cheapest deals and so end up haggling all day. You can't help with farming because Naruto's clones eat all the food. You can't help paint fences or buildings because that would start another paint war, Minato recited. Kakashi, shouldn't you be, I don't know, trying to get them to pass? They currently hold the record for most D ranks failed ever. Kakashi beamed. I knew they had it in them. Besides, if you think about it, it really takes far more effort and creativity to manage to fail so many consecutive D-rank missions. Minato sighed. But there aren't actually any more D-rank missions they are eligible for. Then I guess that means it's time to graduate to C-rank missions, Kakashi said brightly. Failing C-rank missions are a bit more serious than failing D ranks, Minato told them seriously. As their Junin instructor, you have the right to request they move up to C ranks, but I need to know that you all will take these seriously. Sakura nodded. Absolutely. HN, Sasuke grunted in agreement. Dibs on any escort missions to Wave, Naruto called. Minato blinked. It just so happens that there is an escort mission to the Land of Waves. Naruto, have you been sneaking looks at the mission scrolls again? No, Naruto denied, sounding far too innocent to be believed. Kakashi, Minato asked. We'll take it, Kakashi replied. Alright, I'll just let Tazuna know, Minato said, writing their team down on the mission roster and calling in the old bridge builder. What's this? Tazuna asked, taking a swig of his bottle. They're all just a bunch of super brats. Especially the short one with the stupid face. That's my son, you know, Minato informed him, sounding amused. I mean, I feel confident that Konoha will be able to provide me with a competent force to protect me on my journey home, Tazuna immediately backtracked. Naruto smirked at him. Oh, we'll definitely be able to protect you from any run-of-the-mill bandits you're likely to encounter because that is well within our qualifications. Great, Tazuna said, looking a little nervous. Alright guys, let's meet at the village gate at 9 tomorrow, Kakashi ordered. I'll make sure to let Anko know, Minato assured the 3 genin. So tomorrow's your first day out of Konoha with your brats, Anko mused aloud when Kakashi arrived back at their apartment later that day. How did you know? Kakashi asked, a little surprised. Minato called me in and asked me to make sure you'd be there on time, she explained. Honestly, it's like every time you're late for something, they hold Obito or I personally responsible. If I knew I'd be your personal alarm clock, I never would have agreed to go out with you. But now you're stuck with me, Kakashi said smugly. It's the mask, Anko insisted. I love being the only one to know what you look like without it. Even more so since you started giving everyone who asked a different description, Kakashi concurred. Although the current most popular theory is that I have a bad third-degree sunburn, that I hide from shame, which is completely ridiculous as it's kind of hard to get a sunburn on your face when it's always covered by a mask, but if they would stop asking me, I'd stop giving them false information, Anko said defiantly, crossing her arms. You must be happy, huh? Your dream team finally getting a chance to prove themselves. Oh, I don't know, Kakashi replied. Watching them plot new ways to fail all the D-rank missions they were given was quite entertaining. I'll bet. Why were you so adamant about having those three, anyway? Anko asked him. I mean, Naruto and Sasuke I can understand because of Minato and Obito, but what about Pinky? What's her name again? Sakura, Kakashi supplied. Right, Anko nodded. I've seen her around a few times and from what I've seen, she's a zealous Sasuke fangirl and while I'm sure she'll grow out of it, you wanted her specifically. A lot of girls are at that age, Kakashi pointed out. Even Hyuga Hinata, the only one who graduated who wasn't a Sasuke fangirl, is infatuated with Naruto so I couldn't pick a kunoichi based on that. And Sakura reminds me a lot of Rin, actually. Better not tell her that until Sakura outgrows the fangirl stage, Anko warned him. Or she will hurt you. Duly noted, Kakashi said dryly. And she's gotten a lot better in the past month. It's like she's years more mature and she hasn't slipped into fangirl mode once. She really seems to be taking this seriously. A tribute to your teaching skills, I'm sure, Anko deadpanned. I can see where I'm not wanted, Kakashi sniffed. I guess I'll have to take my underappreciated teaching skills elsewhere. Oh, you know you'd be lost without me, Anko teased. After all, Obito has enough tardiness issues of his own to be able to make you show up on time all by himself. Oh, I don't know, Kakashi said thoughtfully. Last month when you both were on a mission, Itachi did an amazing job of getting me where I needed to be far before I felt I needed to be there. True, Anko conceded. But which would you rather have? The threat of losing your precious but replaceable porn or a happy fiancé? Eyeing Anko's fishnet top and appreciating the fact she'd taken off her trench coat, Kakashi's decision was easy. A happy fiancé. So this is your first time leaving the village on your first ever C-rank mission, Minato said at dinner that night. Naruto rolled his eyes. Dad, don't tell me you're going to get all sappy on me. I wouldn't dream of it, Minato promised. Still, this is not just one milestone but two. And after only a month. You know, Jiraiya-sensei didn't let us leave the village for a good 3 months. Naruto snorted. Is that because he didn't want to leave the convenience of the Konoha onsen and, more specifically, the women's area? Partly, Minato admitted. But, unlike with you, when we moved up to C-rank missions it was because we were ready for them, not out of necessity. If Kakashi didn't feel we were ready for it, he would have stopped us before we got ourselves blacklisted from at least one of the D-rank missions, Naruto claimed. Minato looked at him incredulously. Probably, he amended. So why wave? Minato asked curiously. Huh, you said you wanted an escort mission and then specified that you would prefer it to be in the land of wave, Minato reminded him. Oh right, Naruto said. So maybe he'd been periodically checking the incoming missions to see when Tezuna's would come up so he, Sakura, and Sasuke could pace themselves in their mission failing and they could demand a C rank at the right time. Well, I've heard the situation as wave is pretty bad right now and if this guy needs an escort, he must be pretty important, right? Possibly, Minato agreed. And if he's important, then he may be able to help Wave, and so by helping him, we'll be making things better there. And besides, Naruto grinned cheekily. He's a bridge builder, right? So if we manage to save his life on our mission, then he'll be so grateful he'll have to name the bridge after me. I can just see it now. The Great Naruto Bridge. I never did understand why you decided that was one of your goals in life when you were 8, Minato remarked. Because when I was 8 it occurred to me that that would be awesome, Naruto replied. Ah, I forget the awesome factor, Minato said wryly. That was around when you decided you wanted to be Hokage, isn't it? You know, at first you just saw all the paperwork I had to do and long hours I put in and declared you wouldn't get within 5 people of the position. What changed your mind? The fact that he'd always wanted to be Hokage since the third had explained his job to him so many years ago, and he'd realized that if he were Hokage he'd have respect, but mixed up the cause and effect. He couldn't very well say that, though. His father had been suspicious enough during those first few weeks he couldn't remember his life in this timeline, but fortunately he had the easy fallback of trauma from seeing the end results of the massacre. And the massacre itself, but that was another thing that he couldn't very well admit to, especially as his father knew Itachi never would have left him there to witness all that death at such a young age. I didn't. Naruto finally settled on a reason. But then Orochimaru came and killed the Uchiha and destroyed Sasuke's innocence, and I never want something like that to happen to anybody I care about ever again. I want the power to protect Konoha and all my precious people who make it up. Becoming Hokage seems like the best way to do this. Minato smiled at him, and Naruto could tell that he was pleased with that answer. Besides, he couldn't resist adding. All that paperwork won't stand a chance against my army of Kage Bushin. So tomorrow's your first mission outside of the village, huh? Itachi asked rhetorically. They were on their own that night as Obito and Rin had gone out for a nice dinner. Sasuke looked up from his food in surprise. How did you know? I know everything, Itachi said mysteriously. At Sasuke's skeptical look, he relented. The Hokage contacted Obito as a backup in case Anko failed to get him to show up on time tomorrow. With everyone running around knocking themselves out to get Kakashi to show up on time, it's a wonder he ever manages to be late to anything anymore, Sasuke noted. Itachi nodded. Indeed. Most people would see him being late as a sign of laziness, but these days the amount of effort he has to put into it is simply ridiculous. How old were you when you had your first mission outside of the village? Sasuke asked. 7, Itachi replied. It was 2 months after I had graduated the academy, and a local village was having some problems with wild animal attacks, so we had to take them out. Killing on your first C-rank mission? Sasuke asked distastefully. Then again, he had never gotten around to killing anyone until he was 16. Obviously, as an Anbu captain at 13 and committing the massacre at the same age, things were different for Itachi, but 7 was still a little young. Itachi shrugged. Better wild animals than humans for your first time. Your mission probably won't involve either, since it is a simple escort mission, but you never know when a mission will take an unexpected turn. You can't account for everything, and clients will not always be honest with you. Sasuke nodded. He'd learned that particular lesson the hard way when he thought Kakashi had gotten himself killed the last time they'd taken this mission. I hope the mission runs smoothly, but according to Naruto the situation in Waves is pretty dire, so who even knows? So you're pretty happy with your team then? I've known Kakashi and Naruto for years, Sasuke replied. They may annoy me to no end, but I'm used to them, I guess. Sakura's gotten over her fangirl tendencies remarkably fast, so even working with her isn't really a problem. Although if they don't let that whole revenge thing drop, then I simply cannot be held accountable for my actions. Itachi looked at him seriously. You still hate and seek vengeance on Orochimaru for the massacre? Sasuke winced internally. He really didn't want to talk about the massacre, especially not with the person who had actually perpetrated it, regardless of what most people in this new timeline believed. Besides, how was he supposed to reassure his brother that he didn't hate him when he did, in fact, hate Orochimaru and wasn't supposed to know what had really happened? I hold Orochimaru responsible for destroying my family, he said slowly. In more ways than one, as the snake Sannin had not only induced him to abandon Kakashi, Sakura, and Naruto right when they were finally coming together as a team, which he still wasn't sure if he regretted or not, but also had manifested himself during his fight with Itachi and drove him closer to his death by exhaustion. Granted, with his illness, he would have died soon anyway, but that really wasn't the point, was it? Sasuke chose his next words carefully. And yes, I do fully intend to see him pay for that. The massacre, I never saw it coming. I don't know why it happened, and the not knowing, not understanding, is killing me. It all seems so senseless. But, it's not just that. Orochimaru is crazy. From what I can tell, he's brilliant, but no one can deny he's mad. The experiments he's conducted on people, will conduct on people. He sheds bodies like the snakes he so loves, and if he isn't stopped, he will continue to wreak havoc on the world. And did he mention how much he wanted revenge? Still, given the situation, downplaying that and focusing on the things he'd seen in his time in Oto and the Konoha invasion itself was probably the best way to handle it. I'm going on a mission tomorrow, Sakura announced to her parents. That's nice, her mother said absently. What is it this time? Gardening. Filling in at the onsen. Babysitting. Ninja are so versatile. Nope. Sakura said cheerfully. We already went through all of those, so we're going on an escort mission. An escort mission? Her father asked. Does that mean you're going to be leaving Konoha? Sakura nodded. We're going to be escorting a bridge builder back to his home in the Land of Waves. It's only a C rank mission, so it should be pretty basic. Just watching out for bandits and wild animal attacks, that kind of thing. Supposed to be, her father repeated. Does that mean it won't? Sakura shrugged. I don't know, she lied. It shouldn't be, but it never hurts to be prepared and might kill you not to be, so. Kill you? Her mother jumped on that, alarmed. I'm not going to get myself killed on my very first C-rank mission, Mom, Sakura assured her. Or on any C-rank mission if I can help it. Kakashi, Naruto, and Ino would never let me live it down. Even Sasuke would probably have something to say about it. Sakura, her mother hesitated. You're sure that being a ninja is what you want to do? It's a little late to be asking me that now that I've graduated and am a registered kunoichi, don't you think? Sakura pointed out. I know, her mother acknowledged. But it's one thing to know that, one day, your only child would be facing life or death situations, and it's quite another for that, one day, to be tomorrow. I know that you're worried, Mom, but Kakashi is very well qualified and I have nothing but faith in him and in my teammates. I'll face tougher challenges than getting one old man home in one piece, and I'll come back from them in one piece myself, I promise. Besides, I'd be hopelessly behind if I switched career paths now, Sakura said lightly. We may not understand the life of a ninja very well, her father told her seriously. But don't forget that we're proud of you, honey. The next day, to their surprise and mild horror, Kakashi was already waiting at the Konoha gates when the three genin showed up. How in the world did I manage to be late? Sakura wondered. My house is 20 minutes away and I left 45 minutes early. You're not late, Sasuke said, sounding as if he were in shock as well. Kakashi is early. You know, it's a sad day indeed when we get somewhere after Kakashi does. Naruto shook his head ruefully. Laugh all you want, Kakashi told them. Anko wanted me to be here on time and she can be very persuasive. Really? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Kakashi nodded happily. Yes, but you're far too young to hear any more. Like we'd even want to, Sakura said, making a face. You're honestly accusing us of being too young? Naruto demanded. Seriously, after everything, that's rich. He's got a point, Tazuna piped up. You three barely look old enough to have hit puberty. Especially her. Sakura automatically raised her fist, but Naruto held her back. Now, Sakura-chan, he whispered, if I didn't get to kill him, neither do you. Besides, Wave needs him, remember? Reluctantly, Sakura stood down. She knew Naruto was right, but, honestly, given the man was lying to them about the danger of the mission and could very well have gotten the three fresh out of the academy, Genin killed, particularly her, as she was useless at the time, and Naruto, as he'd confided that he couldn't properly use his chakra until he'd accessed the Kyubis, which made it ironic that Sasuke was the one to nearly die. Would it kill him to be polite? It would have made their decision to keep going once they found out the truth a lot easier.